Hey, what's up, Liron here. In today's video, I want to show you how you can paint realistic watercolors, but still do that in a loose way. I know that may sound strange. Let me demonstrate it to you. So first, what I'm going to do is make a quick sketch. We're going to focus on the mortar and pestle from the making pesto painting, funny enough. And I just want to show you real quick, I'm establishing this rounded shape. I'm placing in the pestle at a bit more of an angle, placing that in. It doesn't even have to be that accurate. Honestly, you'll still get a great result, even if it's just fairly loose. I'm going to drop down a center line down to this point, and then I'm going to make it into a bowl. And then for that bowl, and I'm sorry if you can't see all the details, I'm working a little lightly. I'm going to make sure to create a scan for you to work from. But then we're going to turn it into a mortar, or rather like kind of a goblet shape. And we're going to add this bottom area. Give it three-dimensionality, and we've got a sketch. From this point on, we're going to start creating some values by, first off, showing where the shadows are going to be. So look at this, check this out. So this is going to be the inner layer, and that's going to be the outer lip. Around this area, we're going to drop a line, and then we're going to connect it to a blurred line that's going to show us where the coarse shadow is going to fall. And then from here, we're going to drop another line for that coarse shadow and another line. So essentially everything you see here is in the shadow. Now there is going to be variety in it, that's fine, but it's going to be in the shadow. Then we have this section right here that's going to be also in some kind of a shadow, and believe it or not, we're ready to go. Let's get started. So I want to show you how. Yes, we're going to aim for realism. We're going to work just in black and white. And even though we're aiming for realism, we're still going to paint quite loosely. Okay, that's something a lot of people are scared of. So let me show you one of the first tricks you could use is a lot of water. Okay, so I have a lot of water here. This is relatively flowy. If I move the palette around, you'll see the paint moving. And I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to place this strong, quite wet paint right here, okay, in this area. Now, people are worried at this stage. You have time. If I move this around to show you the light, you see it's all quite wet, and you can very easily just wait if you want to. Nothing will happen. Now, I'm going to use this opportunity to smoothen out some edges and adjust the shape. So what you'll see is there's a bit of a layer that smoothens it out, and it's also quite visible where it's not white. This isn't paper white, and it kind of moves into a bit of a darker area, and into a mid-value area that then turns into white. Okay, so I'm just using some clean water, moving the paint around. Okay, so once I have this design in, I can start darkening. I have time. I can take a couple of moments here, take a break. But let's start feeding this with dark paint. I'm just putting that paint in there, looking at what it does and kind of letting it do its thing. And you'll notice that this goes a little lower here with the darkness, but there's a bit of a reflected light somewhere around here that goes a little lighter. Okay, that's something to note. Now I'm just going to pick up some of the excess paint because we used quite wet paint here, and I can go ahead and push back some of this paint. It moved a little too much, so here's me pushing it back by coming back with a damp brush, and I can pretty much work at this as much as I want. Go ahead and repeat that, but you see how you get this beautiful transition here from dark to light. You can push back on that edge some more, and you can decide to lift back some of that reflected light here that we're seeing. We can design this shape, that's the thing. We can design it however we want to. and we still have time to work on it. I'm gonna watch it to see how it dries. I'm gonna watch it to make sure it dries how I want to. But you see, I'm not too scared to go back in with my brush. But let's move on, shall we? So I'm gonna start dropping some paint here. Again, going back to my very wet paint, because I want time. So I'm gonna paint this whole thing with very wet paint. It looks strong, it's actually not. And let's do something different this time. Let's pre-wet every place where there's a smooth transition. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pre-wet these areas. Then I'm just gonna drop my paint here. And I'm gonna let it move. I don't mind it moving a little to the right. In fact, I want it. Would make it look even better. So you see the paint starts to spread. There's plenty of nuances. There's actually some paint here on the lip. The lip is also not white, okay? And we can probably use this opportunity to darken here as well. You could wait with it, but I'm just gonna connect it all together nicely, like so. There's a shadow here. Let's connect that too while we're at it. Now we can look at it and see, does it do what we want it to do? Does it look the way we want? To me, it appears like this moves a little further in, and then I can start placing in. Now, when you come back with very thick paint, it's very fun. So let me show you. I'm just gonna drop that thick paint here inside the wet area, and look at how pretty it goes, right? And that can connect to that diagonal shadow from earlier. And it can also add this nice little edge here. You see, so we're working quite, what feels to be quite loosely, because I'm letting the paint do a lot of the work for me. I'm gonna smoothen out that edge, and in fact, I'm gonna lift that a bit. I'm gonna come back to my paint here, go back to a lighter value, and I'm just gonna place that in here. What happens is, talking about reflected light a lot lately, there is quite a lot of it here. The light reflects back from the surface that is quite light and makes this area be a little lighter. So what we're gonna do is come back with some very thick paint around the center. I wanna push this to be even darker. So I'm just gonna place said dark paint right here in the center and help it move around to the bottom edge here. But I'm gonna pause here because this needs to be lighter again, and underneath it we can revisit that dark paint. So you see, we have time. That's the thing. You know, when you paint freely, when you're truly able to be free, you'll discover that you have so much more time, because something about the obsession with being accurate is quite ironically preventing you from being accurate and robbing time from you, time that you could have used to paint and to be fully engaged with the process. When you're able to be this fully engaged with the process, it's almost like paint and time bend to your will. It is quite magical how that happens. All of a sudden you have time to play around with effects and edges and details, and it all still looks quite good. Even if you're a bit off on the timing, you see there's still this great feeling of depth and three-dimensionality. There's still time. You can use something like a hair sprayer, like a water sprayer, something like that if you want to, or you can just not use anything. But that freedom you get, that's the thing that will give you an endless amount of time. This is why I say, when you paint completely freely, you can do no wrong. There are no mistakes. Paint, the universe bends to your own will. And that's when you're able to paint things however you want to. And you can do things that might be considered sloppy when it comes to technique and how you should paint. And they still will work. They still will work. Even so-called perceived mistakes. I'm going to just indicate that cast shadow here to create contrast. Even so-called perceived mistakes will be interpreted as successes. when you find that freedom. Just like that. Can you see how it starts to create an impression? You can come back, add even more darks if you want to. You can come back and kind of render things as a background, which I often love doing. I'm just placing in the details. And by doing so, I'm building the shape of my actual subject matter. Or you can leave the background blank if you choose to. That is fine too. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to give it a bit of a interesting backdrop, just for fun, completely based on abstract shapes that have no meaning until they're seen together. And what's so great about painting like this in black and white is that it does allow you to worry less about the colors, right, and matching those. Just lets you paint like this. And you can even add a bit more of the backdrop if you want to. I'm just gonna add some water and open up the edges. To me, that's a perfect painting pretty much. There's nothing else that I would be missing here. This creates the impression, the three-dimensionality, the shapes. You could start developing the background. Work quite loosely if you want to as well. So see, there's a great contrast here, right? And all I'm doing is placing in contrast. I'm not even thinking about what is this? Is this a window seal? Is that called sill? I don't know. I'm not sure. What is that? Who cares? It still looks good. Come back with some water. Bring more of this mid-value. Be a little careful around the edge. Continue dropping these details down. As it moves down, you'll notice it goes lighter. And then there's this bottle or whatever that is that goes darker. That will also cast a shadow. Though the countertop isn't white, so we're gonna add maybe a bit of water here. And before you know it, you have something, right? You have a story, you have whatever it is you want. If you want to paint like this, if you want to paint with complete freedom and courage, honestly, this is something you kind of have to, let's see if I can sign this one already. Yeah, this is something you kind of have to discover on your own. But what I can do is help maybe become that catalyst for growth. If you check out my frustration-free watercolor course in the description box below, you'll perhaps find the catalyst for painting this way and achieving beautiful results. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much to you and to anyone who supports me over on Patreon. You make it possible for me to make tons of videos for everyone to watch for completely free, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.